Our next session is a panel. The panel leader works for BlueStack, which is an amazing piece of software that lets you run Android apps on the PC. His name is John GARGIULO. He's Senior Vice President at BlueStacks, and he helped build them from stealth mode to 30 million installs. John?
Thanks, Scott. Come on up, guys. Hey, everybody. While these guys are coming up here, I will introduce them, and we'll learn some stuff about UA and how their experiences have been with it. So Vlad FUNTIKOV, right, sitting next to me, was sitting in his apartment kitchen 4 years ago and designed Basketball Shots 3D, which went on to get downloaded tens of millions of times on Android. After that, many of you may know the drag racing franchise, which now has over 150 million downloads. I think there's only 8 games that have even over 100 million on Android. So Vlad has been around Android a long time, and the company's totally bootstrapped, which is really impressive, and now they're 100 people. Sebastian from Pixel,
Hi everyone.
Co-founder of Pixel, and all-around nice guy. You guys may know Pixel from Doodle Grub, which was an instant hit for them when they launched in 2011, and The Sandbox, which since 2012 has been their big franchise. I personally am a inveterate player of Doodle Grub. If you haven't downloaded it, please do. It's a really fun game. And Casey Lee from Gameville, the big company. Now majority shareholders have come to us as well, which means that Casey is helping lead publishing and UA for the largest gaming conglomerate in Korea, and doing a great job at it. And so he'll have some insights for us on the bigger guys. So I'm going to jump right into it. We are in a crazy, crazy state of UA, the UA world right now, as many of you have experienced. Getting discovered is probably the #1 problem that most developers cite. Vlad, you've been in this mobile industry since really things got rolling at the end of the 2000s. How have you seen mobile UA evolve over that time, and sort of how do you see the state of things today?
Thanks, John. Well, I think it's definitely become more difficult, and I think it's natural because it's defined by demand and supply. And when we got into this game 4 years ago, we kind of missed on the iPhone thing, but we were riding the wave of Android evolution, and there was crazy numbers of people buying the smartphones, but the big guys, the existing developers, publishers were kind of slow to react. So this created this situation that where there's lots of demand but not too much supply. So an indie with minimal resources could get into this game and get some downloads and establish a company like we did. But eventually these guys figured out that there's money in this market, so they started coming here to this app economy with their big budgets, inflating the price a little bit. Then some of them started making money, reinvesting that money, prices keep going up. And I don't want to start this panel on a negative note, but I think that it's not going to get any better. And as the demand is not growing at the same pace as it used to grow, especially in developed countries, where most of the money is at the moment, we're going to face more challenges. We're going to have to be very smart and creative about our UA if we want to survive.
And I want to ask you guys about that later. That, is there a bubble? Are these prices ever going to come down? Casey, you have, as you guys have moved from sort of a first-party developer to, I guess, 90% of your games are published now. How have you seen UA evolved? You guys have been doing it a long time.
Well, actually, before when we were developing, all of our UA was actually only done in Korea. As we started moving over to a global initiative, our user acquisition approach is a little different. We don't spend too much money on user acquisition. We have our own user base to kind of make up for that. But when we do use user acquisition, we're very careful with what we do. We make sure that all the metrics are in place before we run any campaigns. User acquisition is more what follows after creating a good game. And so I think a lot of people beforehand will run user acquisition campaigns thinking that it would make their game go to the top, and then they'll just monetize from there without any other work involved. But I think right now it's more you have to create a good game, and then you run user acquisitions to kind of support that, and then constantly just have it sustained throughout the lifetime of the game.
Right. Sebastian, when you set out to do a user acquisition campaign, and I should reiterate, one of the great things about having you here is you guys are 25, 30 people now, successful indie, don't have massive budgets to spend on UA. So when you're, spending your monthly budget on a new or veteran app, what metrics do you look for? What defines success and failure for a campaign?
That's true for us. We try to spend very small budget. We never spend more than $10,000 per month, which may sound big for an indie, but is literally nothing compared to the budget of the big studios now. And we are more focusing on building a community of players rather than spending on any networks. So we try to lower, we fix a maximum CPI, for example, say $0.50 in the US, which might sound very low compared to the market right now where it's at $2, $3.
Is this on iOS or Android?
iOS, yes. It's close to $1, $1.50 on Android. And we can follow the trend. So we just said our maximum budget on CPI is that. And if the network cannot deliver, we just don't run the ads on it. So that's already is a kind of firewall to where we can spend or not our money.
So is the success or failure really totally decided almost before the campaign runs? As long as you can hit those CPIs, you're golden? Or is there anything that you look at after the campaign to decide if it really was worthwhile?
We have installed a few SDK for tracking the performance of our acquisition campaigns, so we can recommend tools like mobile app tracking or party tracks, where we are able to measure the revenue per install or LTV from the different acquisition source we have. And of course, yes, we try to make a return on investment on every campaign.
Casey, actually, that's a good point, Seb. So it's not just about acquiring installs, it's also about the quality of those installs. How much does that vary between sources in your experience?
So one thing I did notice when I ran user acquisition for Gameville was that I don't think any network really has really good quality users. When a network comes to you and says, okay, I have really, really good quality users, better than the rest, most of the time, it could be true, but it also can't. They don't know. It's because every game is different. You have a different audience for each game. So if one network, work well with a casino game, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to work well with an RPG. So from my experience, I found that you have to really test across all the networks for each game. Sometimes one network might not do well, but it might do well for another game. So you really can't tell.
But the big separation to me would seem to be incentivized installs, for example, versus unincentivized. Are you saying there's not even a huge gap between those?
Yeah, so incentivized, a lot of people think that incentivized is very low quality. And of course, it is lower than non-incent traffic, but at the same time, they're all still gamers in the end. And you never know if an incentivized user likes your game or not. So it's offset by the cost of an incent. So if you run an incent CPI, you're spending a lot less than non-incentivized. So you're making up for quality.
So the market is kind of even those out to where it's fair either way. Vlad, how about you guys? When you run a campaign for a new app, what metrics do you look at specifically, and how much do you drill into the data to find if it's been successful or not?
It depends on the app. Some games are designed to be viral. Like, I won't name one game which makes news over the last few weeks. It wasn't designed for this LTV versus CPI game. It was designed to be viral, and it was successful. And in some games, we are looking for the same quality, so we are investing a small amount, seeing where it lands in the rankings, how much organic uplift it gets. We try to analyze why. Is it because of poor retention or good retention, good icon, good title? Did we hit the sweet spot in the audience, or did we miss it completely? In some cases, we are in the CPI versus LTV game. We try to make a product where LTV is high enough to allow us to buy installs at a reasonable scale, because you can still buy installs for like 10 cents, and if your LTV is 30 cents, you can have this 20-cent margin, but you get like 500 installs for that. And if you're a student, you get like $100 a day in profit. That's okay for you. But if you want to build a billion-dollar business, not gonna happen. So it really depends on the goals of each specific app.
Sure. And that reminds me, Casey, you were talking before the panel about, focusing, and you mentioned this in your introduction, focusing on after the launch versus leading up to the launch. You were saying that you think people concentrate almost too much on user acquisition rather than retention. How do you set up a game, specifically, what kinds of things have you guys done to set up a game for success after the users are acquired?
Yeah, sure. So we put a lot of focus on our live operation teams. When I run a publishing deal, we'll create a game, launch it, soft launch it, get some analytics back. If it doesn't hit our metrics, we're going to keep changing the game. Listen to user feedback, add updates, run live events, make those metrics go up. And then when you start running campaigns, it's much easier to make your money back. It's much easier to get ROI positive. So instead of gaining users and then testing out your app on them, where you could potentially lose half the people that you just gained, it's better just to work on the app for a little more and then run the campaigns where you have a higher chance of keeping all the users and monetizing from them.
Sure. So we talked a little bit about incentivized and unincentivized. There does seem to have been a movement from these, pure, call them cheap bursts of, the 2010, 2011, to now you're hearing all about retargeting and CPE, cost per engagement campaigns, deep engagement campaigns where you pay more depending on how far along the user gets. Seb, have you experienced any of these concepts, and do you think any of them are here for the long term? Attribution layers, all this stuff.
We didn't go that deep into acquisition. Before retargeting, we have done, and what I believe we are not so bad at, is targeting first. So we've been running most of our acquisition budget with Facebook mobile ads, which allows us to target very precisely the gamers by interest. So we are looking for proximity with similar games to ours that help us draw either the CPIs lower or get the player higher retention of the player we acquire, because we already know they quite like this kind of game. And once they are in, we usually see a very good retention rate. So we didn't have to face this problem of retargeting yet.
Actually, I want to come back to...
And I want to add something also. To do retargeting, you need to have some quite of a very large group of users you previously acquired that is not engaged anymore in your app to retarget it. And with the Sandbox, we have a 95% ratio of organic users versus 5% paid acquired users. So that didn't come from us.
Right. I forget what I was going to say, so I'll just jump right to Facebook.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That was really interesting. So I keep hearing that Facebook, this newish platform they have to acquire users, the first-party thing, and now they've announced a third-party thing where you can actually have Facebook app install ads in other apps. That's coming eventually. Vlad, do you have any experience buying on Facebook? What's the scoop there? Why does that thing seem so hot right now?
To be honest, I don't know. We tried it. It didn't work the way we expected it. Maybe we did something wrong.
How so?
I'm not on the data end of our organization these days, so I can't disclose any interesting insights. But it's like any sort of marketing, it's complicated. You have to do it right.
Sure. And they're to be fair to them, they're early days in their platform. Casey, what about you? Have you guys played around with Facebook, and what have the results been?
Actually, for us, Facebook has been really good. We were able to get really low cost, high quality users through Facebook. I think it's a matter of how well you know your users, how well you could target them. Also, creative is a big deal. We have a team just working on just creatives. If you look at Facebook creatives, some of them just, I don't want to install them whenever I look at them. But if you're creative with it and you're imaginative with your creatives, then it's a lot of the times the conversion rates are really high, so you get really low costs.
So there's a lot of indie developers I know in the room, and Vlad, as I said, you started out at your kitchen table and got an app to millions of downloads. Imagine that you only had $1,000 to spend, and you had a game that you put your whole life into the last 6 months coming out today. what would you advise people on? Do they even need to spend on user acquisition at that level, and if so, what should they be spending on?
I think I'd buy a ticket to London and go to Apple office and Google office and try to pitch it. If the game is fantastic,
Yeah.
maybe that's what I should do. If the game is not fantastic, it's just good or very good, but not mind-blowing, I'd buy a ticket to Casual Connect and seek for a publisher or investor who will fall in love with my game. I wouldn't spend it on user acquisition.
Sebastian, what about you when you guys were getting going?
I think as an indie, first, when you don't have money, you can devote more time, usually. So one strategy, I would try to put 100% of my time at the end of the game production to try to pitch to press, to get more PR attention on the game. Then, with a small budget of, let's say, a few $1,000s, I would focus only on user acquisition networks that allows me to do very small tests, like I can just spend $100, and if I see it doesn't work, I could cut it right away. And for that, I would recommend maybe to try with Facebook mobile ads and a few sets of different creatives and chart boost also.
Oh, yeah. Vlad, you guys have done something interesting with Nitro Nation. So this is their big flagship racing game, the huge sort of, I don't know if you call it a sequel to drag racing, but it's almost like a next-gen title. It says beta in big capital letters next to it. It's live. I've seen it in the US anyway, and it's been this way for some months now. So this seems like a new thing to me. What are you guys up to, and how is it working?
We are building a big game. We want to run it as a service. We want to have great retention, and we need to validate a lot of decisions. So we are launching it in a very, very slow fashion. I'll be talking about it in 2 hours. I hate to promote myself like that, but my speech at 3 p.m. right here will include this part about Nitro Nation.
Very good.
The basic idea is that we are letting in the most loyal users first in samples of, on a scale of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, to get the best feedback from them. Then we're gradually opening it up to more players, and so on. So we're kind of growing it, artificially holding back the expansion of the game.
Are you testing user acquisition efforts and channels? Are you testing
Not yet.
ARPUs?
Not yet.
Okay.
Just the game itself. Retention, monetization at different stages. It's complicated science.
And staying with indies, Casey, there are a lot of people that hear about, when you have a publisher, the publisher will spend lots on UA, or they'll say they will and they won't, or they want me to do this and they do that. And there seems to be some fogginess there, but you guys are a huge publisher who've had a lot of success and a lot of long-term relationships. So what should indie developers expect if they're working with a larger publisher in terms of what kind of UA budgets are available and who's going to spend them?
That really varies on the publisher. Gameville, we work on a 50-50 basis on everything, whether it be net rev share or marketing or server cost. Everything is 50-50. The reason for this is because when we publish a game, we're just as motivated as the developer. We want to make sure that both are equally rewarded, but at the same time, both work equally as hard. So if you have half the money in when it comes to marketing, when it comes to net rev, you're smarter about how you're going to spend that money because it means more to you. And so I think a lot of publishers right now, they do offer marketing spends. They'll tell you guys, okay, we'll give you this much money. Hopefully it'll go to the top charts, but then after that, what's going to happen?
How much money?
I don't know.
Is it a
millions.
few thousand, or is it millions of dollars?
It could go to millions. I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Only because we work on a 50-50 or 50-50 split.
Meaning you contribute 50% of the UA, they do.
Exactly.
Okay.
But
yeah, all right.
But yeah, I mean, it really varies on the publisher.
Sure. Sebastian, you had mentioned Chart Boost and a couple other attribution layer, I guess it's called, companies. Name some companies in the UA space or analytics space that you like, and then I'd love to hear from you guys, maybe 2 or 3, and why. Or your favorite.
I don't want to make any favoritism, but
it's okay.
Okay.
No one will be offended.
I usually like very much work with Facebook because of all its targeting capacity. I also tried Twitter's, which now allows same targeting, but haven't been yet successful at reaching the same kind of CPIs and reach.
Yeah, that's brand new. I think that's what.
Yes,
you're saying,
so
yeah.
maybe I will try again in 1 month.
Yeah.
One thing also is when you try and it fails, you can try again. It doesn't mean it will fail again.
Yeah, it's interesting. These huge companies like Facebook and Twitter getting into the app install arena. Vlad, how about you? What's your favorite company to work with right now?
I don't have a favorite either. It's so different. We haven't found the perfect partner yet. Sometimes on small scale we get awesome results. We get encouraged by those results. We extend the scale by an order of, say, 5 or 10, and we get poor results. It's different in each case, sadly.
Yeah. And Casey?
Yeah, I have to agree with Vlad. Like I mentioned earlier, it really depends on the game. There's no one network that outperforms the rest for every one of our games. So I really don't have a favorite.
Okay. Vlad, what is your favorite UA hack, if any? You've been doing this a long time. All the, the Google Play Store, App Store, they're companies themselves that are trying to get things to work. Have you ever sort of thread the needle or found any way to get up the charts in a funky kind of way?
Yeah, I can tell an old story, which is safe to tell these days because the hole has been plugged by now. Back in the day, when we started this, when Google Play was still Android market, they had this awesome tab called Just In, which basically listed all new apps in the order of appearance. So we could get, depending on the appeal of the app, from several hundred to several thousand downloads out of thin air just by uploading it and staying for a few minutes or hours in that list. And they had this sort of exploit when updates you released for this app counted as new apps. So it basically pushed you back to the top of this list.
Every time you
so you
update
could repeat it over and over again and stay there and get downloads. Then they changed it. I think they changed it at some point to have a kind of cooldown of 7 days. So we would release updates every week. We would wait 7 days plus 1 hour, update the app, try to spend the week thinking of what kind of new features we can add within a week to justify it, then push it up to the top and get some downloads. But then, no offense to any Asian guys in this room, but many Asian developers figured it out and they started just spamming it with thousands of apps, mostly of Asian origin, and Google eventually removed this tab completely, making it difficult for everyone to get noticed.
That's funny. So speaking of the Android market now, Google Play Store, what can developers do to what have you guys find works in terms of optimizing your app, the description, the icons we were talking about earlier? Sebastian, have you guys played around with any strategies there?
Definitely, yes. This is called App Store Search Engine Optimization. You have to define precisely what are your keywords. Think your description in a natural way, in a way that some players will search your game and you would like them to find you. So try to be very explicit and use explicit keywords to describe the kind of game. And the title and the app icon and screenshots are definitely also have a big impact on how much downloads and whether when a user gets on your landing page or page on the App Store, whether they will install or not the game. So usually the three top lines, the three first line in the description are key. The first screenshot is also key. That's the one that should show in a glimpse what is your game about.
When you're looking for a screenshot from your game, what are you looking for exactly to grab people's attention? Is it the menu? Is it an exciting shot?
I would recommend to put directly a screenshot of your gameplay with eventually some artworks and just one short key catchphrase on your game.
Cool. Vlad, have you guys experimented with anything with icons? A lot of people do different things seasonally.
Yeah, we basically specialized in that in the early days because we didn't have a marketing budget, so we had to be smart and creative because that's what you do when you're broke and you don't have money. You're creative. And we swapped icons back and forth. We played with the title and description, and that had an impact. And you mentioned Basketball Shots 3D. The game wasn't called Basketball Shots 3D originally. We thought we were creative people, we were artists, so we came up with an original title, which was 3-point shootout, because the game simulated 3-point shootouts like an NBA. And we put it on Google Play, and nobody downloaded it. It was a complete and total failure. And then at some point we decided to change the title to something obvious, like Basketball Shots 3D. And we also changed the icon from the sophisticated icon we used to have to a big orange basketball. We hated this change because it was so in your face, like, hey guys, here's a basketball game, basketball, it's 3D, it's about basketball shots. Terrible, but it worked because we got this milliseconds in the list. The attention span when the user is browsing these app stores is very short. We got this milliseconds and we had to make these milliseconds count. So that's how we came up with drag racing. We called the game drag racing. We realized that it's not gonna be trademarkable. It's going to be difficult to build a brand out of it. We'll face problems in the long run. But it kind of sends the message immediately that this game is about racing, it's about cars. We put a car on the icon. Everyone who's into cars is immediately attracted by it.
That's interesting. So being really forward about this is what this game is when people are scrolling a lot of games has worked for you guys. Casey, you've been doing this a long time, and you guys have a ton of titles. Have you experimented with icons and descriptions, and any tips for people out there?
We have experimented with it. I would be the first person to say that we're not the best at it. We try to change icons as much as possible, but I think it's really the market that you're targeting. Something that works in Asia might not work in the US, might not work in Europe. So you really have to, it's a trial and error kind of thing. As for description, I think it's the first thing that users see when they come to the page. So it's either description or your screenshots. I think the video helps a lot on Google. But yeah, it's really trial and error, and you really have to work on it. But there's no set formula that works throughout all games, I think.
Sure. And sticking with the Google Play Store, is there anything that you feel like they should change, or things that have frustrated you guys about the way it's set up? I feel like I've seen them fragment the featuring a little bit. Used to have just one big thing at the top, and now there's all these categories. Is there anything, if you were to give advice to how they could make any changes to the store, that you'd like to give them?
Are there any Google people here?
I don't know.
No.
Hopefully,
well, I think the feature, what you mentioned, the feature, that it did change a lot. If you get featured now, you don't get as much of an organic boost as you did before. That's because, like you said, it's all fragmented. You don't see as much. I know that they're trying to change to full screen banner or the interstitials. But yeah, really, I think it might even be better for the indie developers now that they have a chance to be equally.
So more apps can get up there, but less at a time. Sebastian, either Play or iOS, is there anything that peeves you about one of the app stores that you wish they would help developers more in terms of discovery, or any change you could make if you ran either store?
We've seen the Google Play Store change quite a few times over the last year. I actually preferred it before, when it was able to drive much more installs when you were featured. But I understand the need to allow better discovery of apps and show much more space for any developers, which then creates more segmentation. I think the key relies in the search feature of on both iOS and Google Play stores.
Yeah.
The way you search without any kind of parameters, and the only way to browse the list, which is either horizontal or vertical, makes it too restrictive. And it reminds me of Google back in like 15 years ago on the Google web page. So I think there's a lot of improvement on the search.
I can't figure out why Google Play, if I type in drag racing 2 words, it doesn't bring up the app. You know, it's not as smart as the search results for some reason. Vlad, do you have anything to add on the Google Play Store, or also the App Store on iOS? Because, you know, ever since the Chomp acquisition, they've made a lot of changes there as well.
I can comment on the App Store because we're sort of Google Play specialists. When it comes to Google Play,
Right, of course.
one of the things that they're working on actively is recommendations engine, which they rolled out at least a year ago, but I think it's not quite there yet. Because guys on the Google Play team, they're smart. They realize the problem. They realize that this ranking-based discovery is not perfect. It is flawed fundamentally.
Yeah.
And even there is certain transparency in the algorithm, still it can be fair to everyone. So they're developing this first search and then personal recommendations, and we've seen actually positive effects from that.
Mm-hmm.
There are positive effects in a predictable way, like when CSR Racing, a game which is very similar to drag racing, arrived on Google Play. We got a boost from that because people who installed it, they automatically drag racing was recommended. That's the positive effect, and that's the predictable effect. Unpredictable effects are when there are 2 completely different games that have a similar title, and somehow one is getting recommended to guys who install the other one.
So that's another thing probably that will hopefully get better over time, but it sounds like it's good that they have it because it can help other developers off of one app. Casey, let's talk about different countries. Back to sort of straight up user acquisition here. Are you guys buying, focusing on the US, Korea, other countries that are coming into the mix? How have things shifted recently? And what would you recommend?
Well, our US office kind of handles global markets excluding Korea, Japan, and China. So I can't say the same for how they run UA over there. I do know it differs a lot. I know user acquisition in our Korean headquarters, they just spend as much as possible because in Korea, if you get to the top charts, you're gonna get a lot of users and you're gonna get a lot of high-paying users. And so it's not the same case in the US, in Europe. We kind of run sustained campaigns. We make sure that we hit all our KPIs. We make sure that we're being ROI positive. In Korea, we run a lot of campaigns, and a lot of them don't even perform too well. But we get that huge burst of users, and I guess it's kind of like a spray and pray kind of thing.
Vlad, we're running low on time here, and I have to ask you guys about Flappy Birds. I couldn't let this panel go by without asking what the heck that was. In fact, when Flappy Birds came out, and I realized it was #1 on iOS and Android, the first thing I thought is that I feel like I could hear developers all over the world saying, "You've got to be kidding me that this thing is at the top." What was your reaction, and how do you think they acquired so many users so quickly?
My reaction was, what's all the hysteria about? Because we've seen similar success stories a while ago, right? But if you look at YouTube, for example, there's plenty of viral videos, and this game has the characteristics of a viral video. It's very short, and it provokes emotions. You either love it or hate it. Most of the time, you hate it. I think 99.9% of people who try Flappy Bird hate it. I personally find it incredibly annoying, but that triggers emotions, and people are social. They want to share their emotions, and that triggers virality. So in a way, it's a viral video in the app form. And yeah, I've heard the conspiracy theories behind it. I heard accusations of bot farms. I'm not entirely impressed by those theories.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly virality and just, it's well known that the game was sitting basically nowhere for months, then it took off. Perhaps there was some help, either a small marketing campaign or a celebrity tweet, something random, which pushed it to the top. But the rest, I think it's organic.
And Sebastian, how about you? Where were you when you heard the news?
Frankly, I'm not so surprised about all the hysteria on the title. It reminds me now the market has grown bigger, so the phenomenon is bigger. But back when Temple was first discovered and like a celebrity, I think it was Justin Bieber, posted his score, and then everyone tried to compete to beat that very score.
I missed that. I don't follow Justin Bieber on Twitter.
And I think it was 3 years ago with Tiny Wings. It was exactly the same. How far could I go and compare yourself to your friends? So once a year, there's one title which totally comes in an imprevisible way. And I don't know, it combines all these factors that you want to compete with your friends, and it gets very viral that way.
Right. By the way, we're going to do the last 10 minutes questions in about 7 or 8 minutes, so think up some great ones for these guys. It's a great panel. Casey, we were talking before the show. I think there's not only developers here in the audience, but I'm sure some ad networks as well. Do you have any sort of likes, dislikes, pet peeves? You guys must get bombarded with emails, and let's make the whole ecosystem healthier here. What advice would you give to someone on the other side of the table about approaching someone like Gameville?
Well, for us, me personally, I think when an ad network comes and asks me, to try out their network, test out a campaign, I can't give them an answer right away. It's like I mentioned before, we do use everybody, and it's just a matter of time when we get to you. So I don't need emails every day telling me, to remind me that there's something going on. There's a test campaign that we need to start. We will get to it, I promise you. But if there were just less emails, I think that'd be fine.
And Sebastian, you guys have done some creative stuff, sort of, they call it free media in the US and the political campaigns, where you're not spending, but you are acquiring users. You've built a community on Facebook, and you've been very successful at it, which is not easy to do. What kind of tips can you give developers on sort of free ways to acquire customers, or semi-free?
Yes, one of the hacks we found for getting more organic users is to build a community around your game. And one of the best tools we found for this is to have a Facebook page and a forum. We spent over a year and a half in community management now since the launch of the game, and we are now close to 400,000 fans on Facebook.
Wow.
We also opened a YouTube channel with we posted just one video per week, which was best of video of the user-generated content, and now we are around 1.5 million views. And my last recommendation, a part of community management and having your Facebook page, is get your players to be your prescriptors. So if they can take a screenshot of your game, or even better, capture video of your game with services like Camcord or EveryPlay, they will generate a lot of content around your game, and it will go viral through all the social networks, YouTube, and traditional media.
Vlad, have you guys tried anything interesting beyond paid as you kind of came up? I think you have a Facebook page for different games as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and that's something we're very proud of, because our
There's a big drag racing community, actually. Now that I think about
it's like 2.2 million likes
Wow.
of fans by now. And when we first started it, we didn't expect it to become that big, but it cost us almost nothing. And we didn't really encourage people to like this page. We just placed a Facebook icon in the app, and that was it. That was our involvement. We also spent like a couple hours setting up the page itself. And over time, we got a few likes and a few more likes.
What about
and
generating content? That's often the bear of social media campaigns and communities, is you got to kind of keep the engine whirring. Did you guys have to produce a lot of content?
Yeah, we had to hire people who specialize in that. These people are few and far between. It's kind of difficult to find a good social media person.
Did you guys hire people too, Seb, or did you do it all yourself?
I manage it mostly myself, and now I have a community manager who is helping me.
Okay. Okay, last question for these guys before we go to your questions. So Dean Takahashi, the gaming reporter, wrote a big article recently citing a Fixu report that lifetime value of users had actually for the first time fallen below the average, the cost to acquire a loyal user was higher than the average lifetime user of that customer, and that was unsustainable. And then SuperData Research came out a week later and said that they anticipate the cost of acquiring a loyal user to triple. Vlad, do you think this is sustainable? Or are we in a huge bubble here? Are prices just going to keep going up, or what?
I don't expect prices to decline dramatically, because I don't see any fundamental reasons for this. There might be a bubble, but like I said, fundamentally it's supply versus demand. We supply great content, demand is not growing with the pace it used to grow. The saturation of developed markets is obvious.
I can see that side of it, but I can also see, it feels like, at least on average, people are pouring in hundreds of dollar bills to get back $80. Do you feel like at some point, maybe the big guys, maybe the small guys are going to realize that that's not working, or is it concentrated in some developers who are way overspending that's throwing off the numbers? It just seems off to me. I don't know. Casey, what do you think? Is this a bubble?
I don't think it's a bubble. I think, like Vlad said, it's supply and demand. I don't think they're going to all of a sudden decide that, oh, we're spending too much money on acquiring these users. If anything, they're going to stay at this rate. I don't think it's going to go down dramatically. I don't think it's going to go up dramatically. It all depends on...
I guess on a macro level, mobile gaming is expanding at like whatever, 200% a year, something crazy. So that's going to continue to grow. Okay, last word, Seb, before we go to questions. Do you think this is a bubble? Or are you seeing prices continue to rise? Or
I think they have almost stabilized over the last 12 months. We can now guess every month a trend. There's a few exceptions whenever there's like special date like Valentine's Day or Xmas Day, but except of that, in top tier 1 it's almost stable, and the biggest increase in price comes both on Android market and in top tier 2 and tier 3 markets.
Interesting. All right, I'd love to get your guys' questions for this great crew while we have them. Someone will be coming around with a microphone. Would anyone like to ask Vlad or Seb or Casey a question? Anyone? Bueller? There we are.
Hi. You mentioned stuff for creating the videos, is that a plugin for you push into the application, or what was that?
So I believe the question is for me.
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Yes. So there are, to my knowledge, there are two providers of SDKs for video recording inside the game. Their name is EveryPlay, which I believe have a booth downstairs, so you can go and meet these guys. They are very cool guys. And the second other is called Camcord.
They're here too, I think.
They are here too also. I can introduce to them if you don't find them out.
Anyone else?
Hey, I want to go back to the community discussion you guys had earlier. So I'm an indie developer, and we're going to focus on different target audiences with our game. We're going to try some shopping games for girls, some racing games, and I was wondering, yeah, I know, we're going to be competitors soon. I was wondering whether you guys recommend just building one entire community for all our audiences, or just make individual Facebook pages and Twitter accounts for each game.
I think that's directed at me primarily, because we have almost a perfect case. We had drag racing in the beginning, then we added drag racing bike edition, focused on obviously sports bikes, and then we added drag racing 4x4, and we faced this dilemma whether we should concentrate everyone in one place or we should build individual communities. The solution, it's not really a solution, the conclusion we arrived at was that if you believe that the game is going to be really big and is going to last for a long time, and you're going to commit to supporting that community, it makes sense to build a separate community for this game. And obviously, if the games are completely different, you have to do that, because you can't post the same things to, puzzle game fans and racing game fans. But if your game is a spin-off of existing title, like in our case, Bike Edition was a spin-off, we were hoping that it's going to be a $100 million download game, but 20 million downloads was a good result for us. It makes sense to concentrate these fans in the same community, just because you won't have to support to create content for that standalone community in the long term.
I absolutely agree with Vlad. We have a Facebook page separated by game, and what we have experienced before is whenever we try to cross-promote the game between the Facebook page, the amount of the reactions, so the amount of likes, shares, and comments is rather low compared to the traditional posts we make on each community, which tend to signify there's not a common interest between the two. So it's better to address different audience with specific message.
Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Wojtek. I'm from Criteria team. A friend of mine who does actually not games but audio applications for iOS and Android said the market is getting so saturated that he's thinking about escaping back to desktops and finding new platforms, because that's become too difficult to sustain the business there. And I think something similar might be happening in games. I mean, there is place for big players, there is place for small players with really crazy good ideas, but it's becoming harder and harder for, let's say, normal small studio to build and sustain a business in gaming. Do you agree on that, or do you think there is a future for also those medium players on the market?
Casey, you have a good view on this because you guys work with a lot of publishers trying to break in.
Yeah, that's actually a very hard question, because first of all, you should be one of those smaller developers that have a really crazy idea. I think if you're passionate about your project, you will find a way to at least find some visibility, whether it be working with publishers or whether it be thinking of creative ideas to run marketing. But I think it really depends on your passion. If you could quit halfway thinking that it's just saturated, the market's saturated, but in the end, it's just you just stopping. So.
Yeah, a question working on the iOS App Store, and you mentioned it before, like since the jump update in summer in 2012, a few changes have happened that affect us a lot. So literally, paid apps have vanished from the search result. It's very hard to be found at all with the paid app. Lately, if we release new app, we don't get any traction anymore. So it's very, very hard if you have an app without a marketing budget ever to be seen by the audience. And then the last thing, like half a year ago, is if you run a new update, you lose all your reviews in all countries. So unless you have 5 reviews in each and every country again, you will be displayed without reviews. Have you guys come across that?
Sebastian?
Yes. So about the amount of updates, one of our good practices to keep updating very regularly, every 3 weeks almost. You can do it once a week if that still works. It does no more. Okay, that's sad. And that's the amount of reviews isn't really a big issue. You have to come up with alternative to get those reviews. So if you can put a feature like a pop-up in your game after you launch it 3 times. Don't forget to rate us if you like it. You know, if you need the reviews, you can get them from the active players. So no, it didn't bother us. Yeah.
Okay. More questions? All right, I want to thank you guys. I want to end with a personal observation just because I think it's very comical. The question that this gentleman here asked about, you know, are things getting saturated? And it does really feel that way. I'm sure for many of you, certainly we see it from where we sit. But it reminds me of, I'm reading a book right now about sort of the dot-com boom. And in the late 90s, Yahoo, you know, they would call you up sometimes and say, hey, we see your website, this new website, and it looks pretty cool. We'd like to feature it. And you'd have a big party and say, hey, we're getting featured on Yahoo, kind of like being featured on Google today. And everyone was complaining, you know, I'm building this website and it's very hard to get anyone to find me. Well, of course now, 15 years later, you need millions of dollars and to be found. Yet there are a lot of very successful web companies simply because the volume of people using the web has expanded exponentially. So I wouldn't despair. I think that the volume of people using mobile and using mobile games is, what are we, 5 years in out of 100, I hope. So this space is going to absolutely explode, and I hope you guys have learned some things here today from these guys on how to get your apps some great users. So, thank you very much.